Hello everybody and welcome back to another All Cars Everyday video. Today we're going to be looking at the top 10 Hello everybody and welcome back to another All Cars Everyday video. Today we're looking at the top 25 best-selling cars, at least for the year 2019, but these stay pretty consistent, at least within the top 25. Sometimes they switch around, but generally it's these model nameplates that are available. This video idea was per the request of Silent Refusal again. Thank you for the video ideas. If you guys want to see more or request a video like this, drop it in the comments below. Okay, so starting off at number 25, we have the Ford Fusion with 166-ish thousand units sold in the year 2019. And that represented a sales drop of 4% compared to 2018. After the 2021 model year, Ford is going to discontinue that car, so they're probably not too worried about sales dropping 4%. Also, I would say anything under 5% just represents fluctuation in the market in the first place. Though I will say an only 4% drop versus the previous year. The Fusion hasn't been redesigned since 2013, so a 4% drop is nothing, especially when you're sunsetting a model line. Number 24 was the Explorer, and this actually represented a 26% sales drop for the model line in 2019 versus 2018, and it sold 168,000 units over the year. This was an article from Car and Driver that I read, and they're claiming that a lot of the reason why it dropped that much was because Ford was having production issues with the Explorer. 2020 model came out. As you can see, it's all across my channel right now. As soon as it came out, they started having production issues with it, and so like deliveries weren't going as planned. That's probably why it didn't sell as many units as they had planned, but a 26% drop is the biggest drop on this list. It represents a huge part of Ford's sales portion. That was not great, but we'll look for that rebound in 2020 with this revamped model. Number 23 is the Subaru Forester, represented a 5% increase in sales at 171,000 units sold. I think every Subaru on the market should probably have more sales than it currently does, so it's good to see that this brand is growing and making a name for itself in North America. We'd love to see that car move up on the list in the future. Number 22 was the Hyundai Elantra, and it fell. They didn't specify an amount. By how much, I can assume it's not too much, though it is weird that in 2019 they introduced that new model with the triangular headlights. Typically when you introduce a new model, you know, sales go up somewhat, so it's weird that it fell. I wonder if that design was too polarizing for some people, and it sold 175,000 units last year. Number 21 is the Subaru Outback. Again, love to see the Subarus heading upward. It sold 1.3% more than it did in 2018 at 181,000 units, and it's riding off a fresh redesign in 2020, I want to say. It doesn't look very different, but it is different. Number 20 is the Nissan Sentra. It fell a whopping 13%, which is a huge drop for the numbers that we're looking at on this list, to 184,000 units sold. A lot of the numbers can be credited to like fleet sales to rental car companies having the Sentras, but regardless, I don't think the Sentra even deserves a spot on the top 25, to be honest with you, especially this previous generation. I know I didn't run a comparison the year it came out, but I don't know that this generation was ever a good car. For the 2020 model year, they've introduced the new Sentra, and I haven't gotten to that car yet, but this previous generation Sentra, for lack of a better term, is honestly just garbage. It doesn't deserve a spot on this top 25 list. I can see why sales are falling 13% year over year kind of thing. So number 19 is the Jeep Cherokee. Sales fell 20%. Wait, is that true? Actually, I had to stop the video and go back and check the article just to make sure that I read that right, because I just didn't expect this drop in sales, not only from Jeep, but from the Jeep Cherokee itself. The Grand Cherokee is the bread and butter model, I would say, and it seems like the Cherokee offers that good CR-V, Toyota RAV4 range in the Jeep lineup, which is Fiat Chrysler's best-selling brand, I guess, other than Ram, you could say. There's really no reason for it. Americans love SUVs, so that was strange for me to see, and I'm curious why that fell 20%, and I don't really have a reason for it. Number 18 is the Nissan Altima. It kind of stayed the same from 2018 to 2019, but that's kind of weird because 2019 was when the Altima got its redesign into that new, pretty good looking car, and it's also the only all-wheel drive sedan on the market right now. So for it to stay the same when they're releasing a new model is maybe worrisome to me, and I think, as you're going to see on the rest of this list, the Japanese manufacturers are starting to see that decrease in sedan purchasing from the Americans that the domestic manufacturers have already had to deal with over the past couple years, and we're going to see that represented elsewhere on this list as well when we get through the rest of them. Number 17 is the Jeep Wrangler. It fell 5% over last year to 228,000 units. That's, I guess, normal model fluctuation. Car and Driver attributed it to the old model being sold in conjunction with the new model at the same time. Who knows? That's not really much to worry about. 16 is the GMC Sierra. It rose 8% as a model line to 232,000 units sold. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't understand why you would buy a GMC Sierra when you could buy a Silverado. If you want the status of a luxury truck, I would be erring toward the SUV side of things. I'm not 100% sure why you'd be buying the GMC Sierras at all. I guess in that sense, I don't think they deserve to be on the list. Number 15 is the Toyota Highlander. It fell 2% to 239,000 units. This was the dated model. Of course, 2020 Highlanders haven't been sold yet, or are just starting to sell now in the year 2020, so it's not part of the 2019 statistic. And so that's interesting that even as an old model, and we're going to see this with other cars like the Jeep Grand Cherokee, it's still selling really strong. And I think that when the 2020 model comes out, Toyota's going to see that huge sales increase anyway. Number 14 was the Ford Escape. It fell 11% to 241,000 units. Keep in mind that that new model came out, that 2020 model came out that I just did a comparison on. And so we'll see if it can correct for some of those sales, because 11% sales drop is not anything to sneeze at. Number 13 was the Jeep Grand Cherokee. It rose 8% to 242,000 units, even though it's a super old car. So it came out in 2011, I think, and it's still selling strong. An 8% increase in sales over 2018 is pretty significant. That to me is wildly fascinating. I agree the design has aged very well, but I don't think it's as competitive as it could be at this point. And it's amazing to me that people are still just snapping that thing up like nothing else. I want to know what the main appeal is. If one of you know what the main appeal is to that car, let me know. I agree it looks great and it performs great, so maybe that's just all it takes. But I think there are potentially better models out for sale right now that you could get your hands on. Number 12 is the Toyota Tacoma. This one was pretty surprising for me. I know the Tacoma is a great truck. It didn't do so well against the Ranger in a new comparison test I did, but I understand the appeal to it. It's just reliable truck transportation, whereas nothing else on this top 25 list is. So I understand that aspect of things. But Toyota seems to be neglecting it. I know they're claiming it's this new model and stuff like that for 2020. Maybe it is newer than I think. It's just the styling stays the same. I think it's pretty high up on this list for being, well, no, I guess I agree with the spot because Americans love their trucks, and this is sort of the only mid-size reliable truck you can get. And it rose 1% to 248,000 units sold. So I agree with where it is on the list. Number 11 is the Honda Accord. It dropped 8% in 2019 to 267,000 units sold, and it's had 2 years of declining sales, even though it got that new model in 2018. So that, to me, again, super alarming. If I'm Honda, that's also really alarming. The Accord is a great, fantastic car. It deserves to be higher on this list, but Americans, again, just not as interested in the sedans. The Fusion saw that drop, the Accord saw that drop, the Sentra saw that drop, and the Altima didn't change, even though it had a new model. So again, we're seeing the pattern here coming to fruition. We're going to see if the Japanese manufacturers are going to do anything about it. Number 10 is the Toyota Corolla, and it rose 0.4%, which again, just normal fluctuation, to 304,000 units. As I'm doing comparison tests more and more, I'm realizing what each brand is known for or what they do very well. So for example, Ford, as a general rule of thumb, gives you, it's kind of a good all around the way that Honda is in terms of like values and performance at the time. Whereas like Honda's all around good as a new car and a used car, which is I think where Ford may struggle in the used car front. Like at the time the Ford is sold, it's decent, but Honda's just remains decent. Toyota's good, just commuter transportation. It's reliable. The main thing is the reliability. It doesn't really excel in many other categories the way that Honda's like fun to drive and stuff like that. And Nissan offers great value, but really not much else, that sort of thing. I've noticed that Toyota's ranked very highly on the list, and I think that the reliability and just dependability of a car to just get you from point A to point B is just a huge factor in buying a car for a lot of Americans. Not that I don't care about reliability, but as a car guy, it's not my top priority, just something that is bland that's just going to get me there, you know? Because that brings us to number 8, which is the Toyota Camry. Sales dropped 2%, which is kind of negligible, to 336,000 units sold. But again, it's that midsize sedan taking a hit. We haven't seen a midsize sedan rise in this top 25 countdown yet. Something to look out for if you're Toyota, but I guess I don't see the Camry sales decreasing too much anytime soon. Number 7 is an SUV. I guess that sometimes gets neglected. At least personally, I just ever happen to think about it, it's the Chevy Equinox. It rose 4% to 346,000. I think it got redesigned in 2018, and I guess sales have just been climbing since then, which is nice. I remember the previous generation model was Chevy's second bestseller after the Silverado, so it's always been a strong model, and I guess Chevy pays attention to it. They redesigned it. It just never seems like it stands out in its class, yet it just sells so many units. Number 6 is the Nissan Rogue and Nissan Rogue Sport. They don't differentiate between the two models in terms of sales, so this number is probably skewed a little bit higher because they're including the Rogue Sport in this. This is one of the few cars on this list that I'm not upset about, but that I have a problem with their spot on the list. The Sentra, I didn't think it should be on here at all, and I think as a consumer, you shouldn't be buying the Sentra, therefore it shouldn't be on the list. Same with the Rogue. It should be on the list. It should just be number 19 or something like that. For it to be number 6 is just ridiculous to me. It's not competitive at all in any way, shape, or form, to be honest with you. With the CR-V and even the Escape and the RAV4, it's not competitive in one way. Nothing about it. It's a shame that it's even number 6, that people are still buying it as frequently as they can when they could be substituting it for a RAV4, an Escape, a CR-V, something of the like, a Mazda CX-5 even. Sales fell 15% to 350 units. So as you can see, Nissan is not doing so hot on this list. The Sentra took a big hit. The Rogue took a big hit. The Altima got redesigned and stayed the same. Nissan spent a lot of time in 2019 redesigning their smallest cars, the Sentra and the Versa, and I think they need to hit the Rogue hard with this next update because it is not competitive, and I think the sales numbers are going to reflect that pretty soon. Well, they already are reflecting that. Number 5 is the Honda CR-V, rose 1% to 384,000 units. That seems to me exactly where it should be. Same with the Toyota RAV4, which is number 4. It rose 5% to 448 units. And that's coming off that 2019 redesign, so that's just reinforcing Toyota that it did a good job with its redesign. Number 3 is the Chevy Silverado. It fell 1%, at least in terms of the 1500 model, to 575,000 units. So that just gives you an idea of how much Americans like full-size trucks. The next best-selling car was the RAV4, and it was at 448,000 units. The Silverado's tacking on well over 100,000 units to that. It's tacking on the entire Fusion's sales pretty much at that point. So that just gives you an idea of the scale of things, and wait till we get to the Ford F-Series. Interestingly, the Silverado fell 1%, which dropped it to the number 3 spot because the Ram 1500 is now at number 2, and it rose 18% to 633,000 units. So the Ram was redesigned in 2019, so was the Silverado. They were both redesigned the same year, I believe, 2019, and clearly the Ram 1500 did what it was supposed to, and the Silverado, I guess, just maintained its, falling 1% is not a super big deal, but it just maintained its status, whereas the Ram grabbed a bunch of customers from Chevy and from Ford for that huge 18% gain to 633,000 units. So that's even another 60,000 unit spread between the Silverado and the Ram. So if I'm Chevy, that's something to be worried about. That's my best-selling model. It's the bread and butter of the lineup, and how can we make it so that Ram is not overtaking us again like that and widening this gap? I wonder if it has to do with styling. All 3 of those trucks are pretty close in terms of capability. That's curious to me. And again, this is the first time that the Ram overtook the Chevy in sales for the first time in a long time. Number 1 is the Ford F-Series, as is usual. It has not moved out of the number 1 spot for, I don't even know how many years at this point. I think it's been the best-selling truck for something like 45 years. I don't even know. And it's nowhere near even coming close to being the number 2 selling car. 896,000 units. It had a slight decline over last year, but 896,000, that's almost another, I guess, 270,000 unit spread, which is ridiculous. I mean, that's the size of the number 11 Accord. It's the difference between selling the whole Accord model line in a year. But I think the statistic is Ford sells an F-Series every 43 seconds or something like that. That's a ridiculous number. People obviously love the F-Series. It's just funny because Ram and Chevy introduced 2 brand new models for 2019, and Ram did get an insane sales increase, but the F-Series got redesigned, I think, in 2015, I want to say. 2015 was when the new F-150 came out. It got a refresh in 2017 where the headlights extended to the grille. That's how I differentiate between them. And so it's been around for full 5 years as of the 2020 model year. The other 2 models are brand new, the Silverado and Ram. So I just think it's funny that Ford hasn't put as much work into the 2019 F-Series as the Chevy and Ram did, and yet it's still nearly double what the Silverado did and 270,000 units on the Ram at this point. So that is the top 25 countdown for the best-selling cars in the year 2019 versus the year 2018. If you guys have any more suggestions on videos that you'd like me to do that are sort of like this, let me know in the comments below. Or if you want to see any certain comparison videos, also let me know in the comments below. Only reason the Cadillac and Lincoln video didn't come out this weekend was because it is terrible outside. It's either 20 degrees at all times or it's raining, which it is right now, because today I was going to go film that, but unfortunately I can't. With that said, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a good day.